Thank you, Ray, for that introduction. I'm pleased to be able to talk to you today about natural approaches to anxiety disorders, because this is a topic that I think is very important. Many of us have issues with anxiety disorders from time to time, or anxiety. So let's talk about what anxiety is. It's really a fear reaction. I mean, really, anxiety is related to fear or stress, because it's a part of what we think of as the fight, flight, or freeze response. It's defined, as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, which typically is concerned about some kind of uncertain or pending outcome. So obviously, all of us are going to experience this under certain circumstances, like maybe you've got a real important test coming up, or you've got some problems in a personal relationship that you're worried about, or a lot of people get very anxious when they have to give a speech in front of people, or when they have financial problems. So what's happening is your stress reaction is kicking in gear, and it's pumping you full of adrenaline, or epinephrine as it's called, and cortisol, and it's priming your body to be able to be ready to perform at peak performance. So it's really not a bad thing. It's really jacking you up to get ready to do a good job, or to be able to tackle something really well. So like, I know that when I have to speak at a major conference and there's a lot of people in the audience and I'm backstage, I have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nervousness about giving the talk. But once I step on stage, all of that energy that's associated with that anxiety dissipates into actually doing the talk, or giving the performance. So some of the things that you experience with this is you might feel a little short of breath, your heart might be going a little faster, your muscles are a little tense. Maybe you feel just a little bit shaky, like you're trembling inside. You might be a little more irritable. If it gets really extreme, you might feel a little sensation of pain or pressure in your chest over your heart, and maybe you feel like something's wrong with your heart, but it's really just the anxiety. You might sweat a little bit, even though you're not hot. You might feel a little faint or lightheaded. Now, if it's long-term, you're going to constantly feel under stress, and your mouth is going to get dry, because that's one of the effects of this. So there are problems where anxiety becomes a chronic long-term thing. So in medicine, they talk about a number of different, what they call anxiety disorders. There's a general anxiety disorder, which is where you have a constant excessive worry about life and about what's going on, and there's nothing that's a specific situation that's prompting it. It's sort of just a general state of being that you feel anxious. There's also social anxiety disorder, which to me is a fancy way of saying kind of shyness, which is feeling worried or self-conscious about being with other people. Comes from a fear of being judged, or being embarrassed, or being shamed in some way. And then there's phobias, which are specific fears of specific things. You're afraid of heights, you're afraid of flying, you're afraid of snakes, you're afraid of rodents, etc. But the fear is inappropriate for the danger. I mean, mice aren't going to kill you, non-poisonous snakes aren't going to kill you, so have an unrealistic fear for that is called a phobia, but phobias create anxiety. So again, it's an anxiety issue. And finally, when you get really, really severe anxiety, you have what's called a panic attack, which is basically in the fight, flight, or freeze response. It's the freeze response. You basically just go into this state where you are really, really nervous, but you really feel like frozen or stuck, and you may have the chest pain and your heart's going really fast, but whatever, and you feel like you're losing it or out of control, but you really don't feel like you can do anything about it either. Now, I don't use in my approach to helping people with this the medical things, because I'm not interested in diseases or disease labels or anything. I'm interested in trying to understand how we can work on underlying causes and improve our health to have things get away. But I think it's important to know this, so that when people are talking to us and they say, this is what I've been diagnosed with, or this kind of problem, we understand what's being talked about. Now, these anxiety disorders are really, really common. They affect about 40 million people in the United States, according to what I've read, which is about 18% of adults, so almost 1 in 5 of us experience unusual levels of anxiety. Now, there are a lot of things that would contribute to having this tendency to be anxious all the time. One of them that I've worked with a lot is if you had a lot of scary things happen to when you were little, or you've been under a tremendous amount of stress because you've had a lot of trauma in your life or a lot of abuse in your life, then it kind of predisposes you to get anxious more readily. In fact, I read a study dealing with rodents. I don't remember whether it was mice or rats, but the little baby rodents that got really pampered and licked and cared for by their moms and got a lot of affection developed more receptors in the brain for cortisol, which means that when a stressful situation occurred, the brain recognized that the cortisol was present and shut down the production of it rather rapidly. But the rodents that weren't taken care of so well didn't develop that, so their stress levels ramped up higher before the brain stopped sending the signals. So that's why if you have had a lot of those things, you're more prone to get ramped up with stress, simply because you didn't have kind of the nurturing, safe environment as a child. Now, there's also nutritional deficiencies involved in here, as we're going to talk about, because there's a number of nutrients that are needed to help us produce calming neurotransmitters and help our body stay relaxed and calm. Environmental toxins may play a role in this. There are chemicals that irritate our body and make problems. And then there's these genetic factors, which may relate to kind of a family history of having certain problems like this. But also, all of these are reasons why a person might have a more ongoing problem with anxiety. Now, the primary medical treatment for this is antidepressant drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. And these usually require weeks to become effective, and they ease the symptoms, but they don't fix the cause. They don't fix any of those underlying things that we're talking about, which is, okay. I think it's okay that medicine treats disease. I think that we don't want to treat disease. Our goal is not to try to be doctor wannabes. Our goal is to try to help people adjust their diet and lifestyle so that they're being healthier and so forth. A short-term relief treatment is to give sedatives, benzodiazepines, which are tranquilizers, but those are highly addictive, and so even medical people don't use them as a long-term treatment. So the strategies that we want to use as a kind of a natural approach are, number one, to get physical activity. Number two, to get good nutrition into our body. 3 is to get adequate hydration. 4 is to practice deep breathing, and closely related to that, practicing calming our mind. And finally, and I put this last on the list because I think the supplements work best in conjunction with the lifestyle changes, because what they're really doing is supplementing the nutritional aspect of this, which is really important. So coming back to this thing I've mentioned about the fight, flight, or freeze response, again, anxiety is linked with fear, and the emotion of fear is involved in this normal stress response, which primes us to be ready to take action, to fight, to flee, to perform, to do what we need to do to handle a difficult or troubling situation. But when we perceive ourselves as unable to handle it, we can't cope with it, our bodies freeze. And I think that's where the anxiety comes in, is where we feel frozen and unable to take action or do something about it. And that's why one of the strategies that I talk to people about dealing with anxiety is to start to identify things that make you nervous or anxious and confront them. Now, I remember seeing the speaker, and I don't remember his name, but he spoke at a Nature Sunshine Canadian conference and also at a Nature Sunshine USA conference, and he pulled out some snakes, and people people in the audience freaked out even though they were non-poisonous snakes, and he actually talked someone through, being able to slowly confront their fear of the snakes and actually got them to where they could hold the snake. And that's what I'm talking about, is if you can learn to just little by little confront what scares you and makes you feel paralyzed, you can learn to do something about it rather than to allow it to paralyze you. And that's really one of the most constructive things you can do. So I formulated the flower essences for Nature Sunshine, and the Be Courageous flower remedy was actually designed to help people do this, to actually help them confront what they're afraid of. But this picture is of me with Sam Kaufman at the survival school this last March, and he had us a scenario where we had to run, and then he pretended to be an attacker and we had to fight him and so forth. And that was terrifying to me. I've never been the kind of person to do that, but I pushed myself to do it anyway. And that's one of the things I've learned, is that if you let your fears overcome you, then you're going to experience more anxiety in your life. But if you have the courage to confront them, and even though something's scary, to train yourself to do it anyway, that's what courage is, and that's what Be Courageous is all about in terms of helping you to do this. So the Be Courageous, I'm not going to read everything on this slide, but basically it contains flowers, remedies that help you confront situations, deal with unknown fears or known fears, for having hesitancy and being able to make decisions, or finding difficult to make choices about what to do in things, being overly dependent on the advice of other people and feeling like I can't trust my own judgment, the feeling like I can't take action on my goals, or the feeling that I get too easily sucked into other people's, doubts and fears and disbelief, because whenever we take to improve our life, there are always going to be people who are naysayers in our life who are going to, prevent us from doing something about it. So this is a very good remedy for helping us to, take action in the face of our fears. Well, one of the actions you can take place in the face of your fear is to do something physical, because obviously this fight or flight freeze response makes you want to do something. So a lot of the problems that we have in modern society, like having to deal with a letter from the IRS or, some unexpected bill or whatever, can't be solved by running away or getting out and punching somebody. But they still evoke in us the same mechanisms that make our bodies primed to want to do something. So one of the things we can do is get exercise. We can take physical activity, just even as simple as taking a walk or going running or swimming or going out and hitting a tennis ball, so that you're doing something that allows your body to be physically active and take that energy that's created by the fight, flight, or freeze response and channel it into actually doing something, and that brings your stress level down. So just when you feel anxious, something as simple as going and taking a little walk can help you feel more calm, because it's like burning off all that energy that your body's creating and wanting to deal with something. So sometimes, when I'm backstage before a thing, I'll be kind of like pacing back and forth instead of sitting down, because it gives the energy some place to go, Now, one of the things that ups our tendency to get anxious is sugar. In fact, there's this little quote I got from an article, Natural Remedies for Anxiety, that says almost universally people will get anxious and irritable when they're hungry. When you're having an anxiety attack, it means your blood sugar is dropping. So one of the reasons why you might go into that alarm state is because your blood sugar is dropping. But when you eat a lot of refined sugar, then your blood sugar gets jacked up and then it falls off. And so that means you're getting more prone to anxiety just by the fact that you're eating a bunch of refined sugar. So if you do a little snack that basically involves something that's a little more nutritious, a little more value, to kind of keep your blood sugar stable, then that's actually going to help with the anxiety as well in reducing it. It's really, really important if you suffer from anxiety to really avoid stimulants. I mean, I know somebody and they smoke and they drink a pot of coffee every day, and then they're taking high blood pressure medication and pills for anxiety. And I'm just like, and sleeping pills. And I'm sitting here thinking, so you're jacking your system up and stimulating it, which is raising your blood pressure with the coffee and the cigarettes and everything, and then you're taking other substances to try to counteract that. That's ridiculous. You know, if you're suffering from anxiety, drinking coffee is not the thing to be doing, nor smoking or any other thing that's overly stimulating. And the same thing is true of sugar and refined carbohydrates, and alcohol, which gets converted to sugar in your blood. All of those things are just going to increase your anxiety, although people somehow do them for some reason when they're anxious, thinking it's going to help when really it doesn't help at all. So I definitely would encourage people to do this. Now, one thing I've learned for myself is that my hydration level is extremely important to my anxiousness. In other words, they're related. If I start to get dehydrated, I don't sleep as soundly. If I start to get dehydrated, my nerves are edgier. And that's one of the other problems with the caffeine and the sodas and the coffee is they tend to dehydrate you, which makes you more anxious. So if you instead you just start drinking lots of water, it actually has a calming effect on your brain and your nerves. I've read that just a 2% drop in water in your brain can increase your level of anxiety and nervousness and so forth. And so basically just making sure you get better hydration along with just a little teeny bit of natural salt, like the salt that Nature Sunshine sells that's got minerals in it, will hydrate your body better, and that will actually help to calm down your baseline stress level. The next thing to talk about is deep breathing. Years ago in college, when I was taking classes in communication, one of the instructors taught us about deep breathing. He taught us about meditation. And one of the things he said is whenever you feel yourself getting stressed and nervous and whatever, he said, stop and think, what a stupid way to breathe. Although I prefer to say, you know, this is not a good way to breathe, because you'll find that you're either holding your breath or you're breathing shallowly and rapidly. And he suggested that you take a deep breath and think, I am, and then exhale deeply and think, relaxed. I am relaxed. And I've tried that at various times in my life, and it's amazing how that simple act of taking some deep breaths and thinking, I am relaxed, will help calm you down in a stressful situation, and you can think more clearly, and you can have better judgment. And it really helps if you have a tendency towards anxiety like I do, to deliberately practice breathing slowly and deeply with what I call squaring your breath, which is you breathe in for like the count of 4, or you can do it longer, 5 or 6 or whatever, but you think in 2, 3, 4, so like in 2, 3, 4, and then you hold your breath in for the count, same count, and then you exhale, out, 2, 3, 4, and then you hold with your lungs empty for that count. And I call that squaring your breath. It's a trick I learned that actually helps you center your emotions, and it greatly relieves your feelings of nervousness, anxiety, and helps to clear your mind. Because interestingly enough, all emotions, including anxiety, have a breathing pattern associated with them. And your diaphragm has the capability of being operated either under involuntary nervous system, which is your autonomic nervous system is controlling your breathing, or it's also capable of being controlled from your central nervous system under conscious control. And since all emotions have a breathing pattern associated with them, when you square your breath, you are centering your emotions. So you are, rather than letting your emotions take control of you, you are taking control of your emotions, because by changing your breathing pattern, you will start to shift your own emotional state. So if you've never tried it, try it. It really, really does help. And the difficult thing is that sometimes you don't want to, because we don't want to look at what's scaring us. We want to try to run away from it. And anxiety is often involved in running away from it. And deep breathing actually helps you confront it. So it goes back to that same thing that we're talking about with the be courageous, which is to really take a look at what you're afraid of and be able to confront it rather than run away from it. Because our fears are like the monster in the child's nightmare. The child, as long as the child is running away from the monster continues to chase them. So as long as you're running away from the things that scare you, they continue to chase you and haunt you and run your life. When you start getting the courage to confront them, they shrivel and become manageable. So like I say, deep breathing is one of the techniques for this. As part of this, one of the things that we do is rather than be present in the moment, we are rattling along in our brain about things that have happened in the past or things that might happen in the future. There's a poem, and I'm not going to recite the whole poem, but it's written by Robert Burns about overturning a mouse nest with a plow in the fall, and he says that he's really sorry that he disturbed the mouse's nest, and he knows the mouse might eat a little of his grain, but it's not like a big deal, and so forth. And then he says, "But mousie, thou art know thy lane, in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men gang off a glee," or we've all heard that phrase, "the best laid plans of mice and men go off astray. And leave us not but grief and pain for promised joy." But then the poem ends with this, and this is the part that actually is the point of the poem. "But mousie, thou art more blessed than me. The present only toucheth thee. But ouch, I backward cast me eye on prospects drear, and forward, though I cannot see, I guess and fear." And that's what we do. We have a hard time just being present in the moment. The mouse is present in the moment. The mouse will get over it. 5 minutes after the thing is done, the mouse will be over it. But we are constantly looking back on all the bad things that happened in the past and reliving them and bringing them, into our current life. Or even though we have no idea what the future really holds, we're looking forward and guessing and fearing. So one of the secrets is to calm that chatter, to come into the present moment, to look at that chatter and realize that chatter in my brain is just a bunch of stuff that's been programmed as my subconscious mind, and I really, really need to learn to just calm and be in the present. As Eckhart Tolle says in The Power of Now, in the present moment there is seldom anything wrong. So most of our anxiety is coming from worrying about the future or fretting about the past and not being present. So meditation is actually one of the things that is a tool to help calm your mind and bring you to the present moment. And you can also, if you're a person of faith, pray, that can be very calming and helpful for people. And just coming to the present moment, and as Eckhart Tolle says, looking and going, well, what right now in this instant is wrong? And like I said, rarely is there anything in this instant that's wrong. We're worried about what might happen in the future or something that's already happened in the past that nothing can be changed. So even if you just bring yourself to the present and start looking around at your surroundings and basically or create a positive affirmation that replaces the negative thoughts, that also helps you deal with anxiety. Now let's get into the nutrition part of this and talk about supplements and things we can do to fortify. I mean, obviously, basic healthy eating is always important for all of our health concerns, but in any kind of situation, there may be specific nutrients that our bodies are lacking that if we take them, we might find that we become more centered and our body becomes more balanced. And one of the things that I think is a critical thing that a lot of people need that may be related to their anxiety is magnesium. And I really like the Nature Sunshine's magnesium complex. It's a good form of magnesium for assimilation, and magnesium is used in just literally hundreds of biochemical reactions in the body. One of the important ones is helping muscles to relax and helping nerves to be calm and helping to promote the production of calming neurotransmitters in the brain. If you get too much calcium in your body without enough magnesium, that actually tends to overproduce neurotransmitters that tend towards anxiety and feelings of stress. If you get more magnesium, that actually helps to counteract that. It can improve memory, help your muscles relax, help your heart to calm down. And so if you have a lot of irritability and nervousness and twitching and maybe trembling or whatever, one of the things that could be a problem is you're just not getting enough magnesium. About 70 to 80% of the people in America are not getting enough magnesium. So what I look for with this, if you're kind of hypersensitive to things in the environment, you feel like easily put on edge, that's one of the things I look for as an indication. And I typically recommend that people take at least 400 and sometimes 800 to 1,000 milligrams of magnesium. And I find it's one of the things helps a lot. I take magnesium quite regularly, and I find when I don't, I tend to get my anxiety wrap up and I don't sleep as soundly and so forth. So that's one of the things I use. And one of the ways you can get magnesium is actually to take an Epsom salt bath. Epsom salts are readily available at any drugstore in America. You basically take a cup or two of Epsom salts and put it in a nice hot bath, and you can make it even more effective by turning it into an aromatherapy bath by taking a little bit of the sunshine concentrate soap and putting it in the palm of your hand, and then adding 5 to 10, maybe up to 15, but no more, drops of essential oils, mixing it in with the soap. And then you basically, as you're filling the tub, you run the water over your hand. That disperses the essential oils into the water, and then add your Epsom salts. And some good oils to use are lavender, chamomile, bergamot, and lemon, depending on your nervous system. The way you tell which oils are best is smell them. The ones that make you feel more calm, that are relaxing to you, are the ones you should use. Some people, lavender, which is normally relaxing to most people, will make them climb the walls, and so will chamomile. And so usually it'll be either chamomile and lavender will calm you down, or bergamot and lemon will calm you down, depending on your nervous system. B-complex vitamins are also a really essential part of healthy nerves. And in all carbohydrates, any food that naturally contains carbohydrates, grains, potatoes, sugarcane, whatever, you have B vitamins. You have B vitamins and a number of minerals. And in order for the body to convert that fuel into energy, it has to use B vitamins. That's why the B vitamins are present in the whole food. But we learn to refine these starches, refine these sugars, take them out of their context. You might put 1 or 2 Bs back in to quote unquote fortify it, but the fact is that as the Bs that are necessary to utilize that carb are done, so eating all this refined sugar and all this white flour and all this polished white rice and all these other kind of refined carbohydrates leads people to deplete their Bs, and the Bs are essential for the synthesis of neurotransmitters. So your nerves get on edge when you don't get your B vitamins. So a good B vitamin can also help, and we'll talk about, in addition to the B complex, the Nutricalm in a minute, which also has vitamin C, which is really important for your nerves as well. For the actual acute problem of, when you're feeling anxious, one of the things you can take is distress remedy. So this is another one of the flower essence blends. This is actually based on the famous Bach flower rescue remedy, and adds 2 flowers that are not in rescue remedy that help to make it even better than rescue remedy at helping you get centered when things are going bad. And this really works. I mean, I've used this on many occasions with myself or other people in situations that are difficult, and it deals with the fact that when you get into that fight, flight, or freeze response, and especially when you feel frozen, have you ever had that feeling like you just got bad news or something bad happened and you feel kind of numb and disconnected like you're a zombie walking around in a daze, that's what this is for. It brings you into the present moment. It brings you so that you're not like disconnected. You're able to be present with what's happening and deal with it rather than kind of zoning out and just, you know, feeling like you're in a daze. And so this is something I think is really good for anybody to keep on hand, that if you've got a client and they're really distressed, you can just give them a few drops of this. It helps to get them centered. A couple of single herbs that are really helpful here. Blue Vervain, and there's specific indications for these. Blue Vervain is for the hard-driving overachievers who basically get burned out, frazzled, overwhelmed, and a lot of tension in their neck and shoulders. It helps you, you know, clear your mind, get rid of some of the monkey chatter, kind of get a little bit relaxed those shoulders and neck from carrying all those burdens and trying to hold your head up high and handle all of it, and basically say, okay, I need to kind of like back off, not, you know, push myself so hard. In fact, Vervain is used as a flower remedy for that same thing, so it's definitely got some indications for that, both emotionally and physically. So St. Johns Wort. St. Johns Wort isn't just for, you know, there was research showing it was helpful for mild to moderate depression, but it's really helpful when that's associated with anxiety. I mean, really, it's kind of an anxious, depressive kind of thing. It's especially helpful for nightmares in children, just kind of vague fears. And what it does is it, again, helps you trust your gut instincts, because remember, it's about being able to take action, you know, about being able to handle or process what's going on, not just you know, taking something to calm your nerves. It's about you helping you be able to deal with it. And St. John's wort actually does have, it's also used as a flower remedy for people who feel overly vulnerable and have to feel protected. And the herb always has a little bit of that same quality in it. I mentioned lavender as one of the essential oils you could use in a bath. It's really good for most people for calming the nerves. You can use it in the baths, but you can also like do a little pillow that you put a couple of drops on so that it's by your head while you sleep. And it's basically for people who are kind of frazzled, high-strung, and they're too much up in their heads and they're not really present in their body. This is one of my favorite remedies. I mean, this was a mainstay of pioneer herbalists in Utah and the whole Thompsonian movement. It's one of the strongest relaxing herbs that we have. It's really potent. You only need like 4 or 5 drops. And it really just helps the whole body just kind of relax, lets the muscles relax. It helps calm the heart. I've used it with people who are just in acute state of anxiety and panic to help just calm down, along with coaching them to breathe deeply and helping them to slow down their breath. Now, when I talk about the angina pain here, I'm not talking about treating the heart disease here. I'm talking about that angina pain, that pain in the chest that you get when you're really, really high-strung and stressed. So it's a really, really good one. This next one is another one that I've used quite a bit. Kava is really good, again, as a muscle relaxant. And if you're kind of stressed and uptight and you're having a hard time relaxing your muscles so you can't get to sleep, then this is a really good one. It's also actually a good one if you're having to deal with problems with somebody else, for both of you to take Kava, because in the Polynesia, they actually use it in marriage counseling and business negotiations, because it doesn't dull your thinking. It relaxes your body but keeps your mind alert. So it actually helps you not to feel so stressed and edgy, so you can talk through things more easily. So that's all some basic herbs and nutrients that are helpful. So let's kind of put this together with some of the really fantastic formulas that we have with Nature Sunshine. And the first one I want to talk about is Standby. We've had it for many, many years. It's called NutriCalm. And what NutriCalm is it's a B-complex vitamin supplement with vitamin C that also has some herbs added into it as a base. So I've already mentioned the importance of the B-complex to your nerves, and the vitamin C works really well with that because vitamin C is also used in the synthesis of neurotransmitters, and your adrenal glands, which help you cope with stress, use more vitamin C than any other organ in the human body. It contains schizandra, which is an adaptogen, and then hops, passion flower, and valerian, which are all relaxing nervines. So my experience with this is a really good formula to give someone sort of to feed their nerves. It helps them be more relaxed during the day, but it doesn't make you tired or drowsy. It actually gives you energy. So it gives you what may seem like a contradiction, but isn't, a relaxed energy. If you've ever seen a little kid who doesn't want to go to bed, but they're really tired, but they're so wound up that they can't relax and go to sleep, they're just kind of running. That happens to people too, to adults. And you are basically so wound up that you're tired and you aren't sleeping well. Well, what this does is this helps you unwind, take down the tension so that you have this relaxed, calm energy. And it can also be helpful if you're trying to get over some kind of addiction, to basically to calm your nerves so that you can cope with the stress and anxiety associated with that. This one has been my personal lifesaver. I've had some really, really, difficult times in my life when, a lot of things were happening. I felt very stressed, going through, divorces or problems with business partners, that sort of thing. And you get so overwhelmed with everything that you start to feel burned out. That's the best term I can use for it. You're just tired, but then you don't sleep well. And that's really frustrating because here you are, you've got a lot on your plate, you're trying to deal with it, and you're dragging during the day, and then you toss and turn at night or wake up at night and can't go back to sleep and so forth. And this is where I have found this particular formula to be really helpful. It's an adaptogen. It also has helps support your adrenals. It helps your nerves relax. It helps to balance your blood sugar a little bit as well. And what it does is it really helps you kind of feel more energy during the day, be more calm and relaxed, and sleep more soundly at night, so you have better energy. It just kind of balances and normalizes your system. And like I said, it's lifesaver for me. It's helped me get through some very stressful times in my life. And so it's one of the things that I really consider one of the standbys I would never want to be without. This formula, Anxiousless, is a new formula, and it's really a great formula, and the fact that the sales of it have just taken off so well is because it's a very effective formula for helping to reduce feelings of anxiousness. The magnesium is in here. Remember I talked about the importance of magnesium for the nerves, and there's also the zinc and thiamine, both of which are important for the production of calming neurotransmitters. So there's several nutrients in here that enhance the production of calming neurotransmitters in the brain. L-theanine, which is from green tea, is an amino acid that also has been shown to help promote the production of calming neurotransmitters in the brain, which helps you be more relaxed. It's one reason why green tea, even though it has some caffeine, is not as stimulating or putting you on edge as, say, coffee or cola nuts or black tea, is because it's L-theanine is found in green tea. And then it has this zebrum, which is a extract of a plant from Africa that was used by natives to help cope with stress and thirst and so forth, but also calms down the stress response in the brain and basically enhances the production of calming neurotransmitters. But it does so in a way that, again, isn't making you drowsy. It's helping you stay mentally alert, because you need to be able to stay mentally alert to cope with the things that are causing your anxiety. This is another one of our Chinese herbal formulas, which I consider to be extremely, valuable things. I love the Chinese herb formulas, and I've had great results in using them with myself and with clients. This is a calming nervine. It's basically for people who are just kind of high-strung. The kind of person who talks really fast and is very hyper and runs around like a chicken with their head cut off all day long and so forth. And it is a formula for just calming down a person's energy so that they basically feel less agitated, again, sleep more soundly. They're not burned out like the nervous fatigue formula, where they just feel like I can't cope anymore or I'm overwhelmed. They're just too wound up, and it just helps to calm down that excessive energy. And the final formula here is adrenal support. And I got two more. Sorry. This is okay. When a person gets to the point where they've been so run down and so depleted that they're just feel kind of wiped out, I call that adrenal fatigue. Paul Bergner, who's a professional member of the American Herbalist Guild, says it's actually not just the adrenals. It's the whole glandular system gets kind of screwed up because of the high stress and lack of sleep and so forth. But the adrenal support works really well in this case. It really helps to rebuild those adrenal glands, which are the glands that help us cope with stress. I have used this with people who've been under really long stress and just are really almost beyond burned out, including people who are suffering from PTSD. I actually have a counselor here that I have worked with, and he's, I've referred clients to him, he's referred clients to me. But basically, he's sent over a number of people with PTSD that he's working with, and I've, put one of the things I've done is put him on adrenal support, which actually helps him work with them better, because it actually helps to rebuild their highly depleted adrenal glands from all of the stress that they've been under. So this is a terrific formula. It contains nutrients that not only help the adrenals, but again help produce calming neurotransmitters like magnesium and zinc and B6 and thiamine, and as well as the adaptogenic schizandra, and then the adrenal glandular substance, which actually helps to rebuild the adrenal gland itself. So our last formula is Mood Elevator, which is for sagging mood, for just lacking energy, feeling sad, down, just tired. And like St. Johns Wort, this works really well for kind of anxiety that's also coupled with feeling down and discouraged and a little bit depressed. It has stuff in it that relaxes the muscles, it helps you sleep, calms down the anxiety. It also helps to relieve congestion in the body and stimulate circulation and lift a person's energy up. So I really, really like this formula. In fact, I use this a lot more than I use St. Johns Wort for people who are suffering from mild depression. I think it's, again, another one of our fantastic Chinese herbal formulas. And all of these, remember, are not like drugs. We're not giving somebody something that's designed to, counteract their system. We're trying to replenish their body, replenish their nerves, and this works best in conjunction with the kinds of improved nutrition and lifestyle changes that I talked about in the beginning. So when you use those together is when you really get the best results. I think that considering, we're dealing with a problem that affects about 1 out of 5 people, and probably more than that if we take all the people who wouldn't have a medically diagnosable problem with anxiety. I mean, who doesn't get, stressed and nervous and anxious from time to time? I think there's a huge potential for us to help a lot of people and in a way that is, very holistic and working on helping to rebuild their underlying health rather than just treat their symptoms. So I hope that you will take and put this information to good use in your life and share it with other people. And thank you very much for joining me today with this presentation.